Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy TeflonJohn coming to you courtesy of the I Am TeflonJohn brand and the Art of Reinvention talk show. And today we have a power-packed show, and I know I always say power-packed, but today's show I have the Apostle, Kelso Clark, and Jackie Clark. Glad to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Glad to be here, sir.
And we're going to be talking about marriage, and one of the, I think, the most popular topics in break rooms and the barbershop, the nail shops, and in churches. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people?
Well, of course, I'm Kelso, and this is my wonderful wife, Jackie. And we've been married for over 21 years this July, next month.
Wow.
And we're the founders of Shatterproof Marriage, and our goal and our desire is to help marriages who are on the brink of divorce, those who have had some trauma and some issues, and really gelling and coming together and operating in unity and oneness. And they've taken some hits that most of the time people just want to faint and give up. But it is our desire and our vision to be able to help those individuals see that there is a ray of hope. And if we can teach you how to communicate, teach you how to be spiritually, build your faith in God towards one another and the marriage, then I believe you can succeed. So that's just our whole goal and our passion and our mission in life for marriage.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Jackie, why Shatterproof? I mean, that's to me. That's that can sum up.
Look, we could probably tell our whole story, right?
Indeed. Well, Shatterproof does kind of sum up what we've experienced and what we've been through, even in our own marriage. We've gone through some really hard times, and where God has allowed us to come back from those situations where divorce could have been an option. And that's one thing that really kept us together, is that we decided we would never name divorce. No matter how bad it got, we would never open our mouth and name divorce. So,
and I don't mean to interject, but I just want to interject here with the never naming divorce. How you start will determine how well you finish.
That's right.
And so that's why we teach in premarital counseling. There are so many variables and dynamics to the marriage relationship. If you don't set the foundation, what you two agree on at the beginning, then you're really setting yourself up for failure. We've heard the statement that if you fail to plan, you've already planned to fail. And so our plan was, we will never name divorce, no matter how hard it gets. So I just wanted to interject
That's so good. And we decided as well that we would not be married based on performance.
No.
Okay? We dwell with one another by faith. And that's our big thing. We love to tell people that we dwell in this marriage by faith. I'm not committed to you based on what you do and how well you do it. And if you come up to this, expectation, and have you checked off my list and this image that we have of one another. But we dwell by faith. I trust what you say, what you bring to the table. I believe in God being the cornerstone of the relationship. Because our love and our relationship with God trumps the relationship with one another. I can stay connected to Him because I'm connected to the Father. So no matter what we go through, because we know we have a greater source that we can go to come through those situations, we stay jailed. It's not perfect. We have issues.
Tension, stress, it arises, but we work through it.
Over the years, God's tempered us. He's tempered us. So that's why Shatterproof.
That's Shatterproof.
We're examples that you can overcome.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So when we talk about God, because we're all believers, and it's hard for the newer generation to understand why Jesus has to be in the center. But could you explain the correlation of the marriage between a man and woman and Jesus in the church?
That is so wonderful. And I think it's important to understand that man did not create or institute marriage, but marriage was created by God from the beginning. We can go back to the book of Genesis and see when God introduced the whole idea of marriage, the concept of marriage to Adam. He said, I see that he's alone, so I'm going to make him a helpmate. So we see that whole creativity of God being present in the garden with creating Eve or creating the woman and introducing the woman to Adam. But the major part is, and this is how I always like to think about that subject, is that when we deal with, let's say if you have an Apple electronic, you're not going to send your Apple electronic to Dell Computers to get it fixed or HP. You're going to send it back to the manufacturer. And so what we have to understand is that if God is the manufacturer or the creator, or He's the one that put marriage into motion, then why not go back to Him, make Him the center of it, and find out how is it How did you intend marriage to really operate and function? We can't operate successfully in our marriage without the Creator, or without watch us reading the instructions and finding out, all of the different variables and dynamics of what benefits we can get out of the marriage. You'll never get that out there. You may accidentally tap into it, but we don't want to accidentally tap into anything, because sometimes that can take years. We want to be intentional, and so that's why God is so important. Putting Jesus in the relationship and making sure that he's number one, that gives you, I like to say, it gives you the manual on how this thing is really supposed to work. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think so many people don't get married because they want to be perfect at being a person.
That's good. Right.
Versus being perfect at the process.
That's right.
Well,
continuing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
keep living, bro.
Because because I think when I view marriage and when I view I always bring up fitness, but a lot of times you won't be perfect at, eating right all the time.
Oh, that's good.
Making all the right choices. But if you're perfect at the process of trying, you will always reach your result.
That's right.
So how can someone that is, wrestling with that, that maybe has the soulmate that God has for them, but they're afraid to take it to the next level because they're afraid of their past or their family that they're connected to ruining that.
Wow. Well, one thing we always teach in our premarital classes is communication. That's the big deal. Learning how to be open and honest with one another. And of course, your relationship with God has a lot to do with what you're able to receive from another person. So that communication piece is really, really huge. Can you share your heart with this individual? Can you really be who you believe you are? Can they accept you just like you are without the bells and the whistles? So if you're afraid to take that next step, somewhere on the inside of you, you don't know if you're going to be accepted for who you are right now. So we make these excuses. Well, when I get the house and when I get the bank account, when I get the status, when that's part of the growth process. That's what makes marriage fun, is when you're able to grow into some of these things together. Sometimes there's a fear in whether or not I can live up to. So we have to get rid of those things, and that's where the faith component comes in. We dwell with one another by faith. I trust God that you can handle who I am. I trust God that I can handle who you are. You understand? And I'm not going to put you on this pedestal and not allow you to evolve and become who God has called you to be. So some of that fear is just in that facade that we have about who we have to be, that perfect husband, that perfect wife. We do selfies and stuff now. Everything is picture perfect. Marriage is not picture perfect, It's messy. It's a messy bed. Who's going to make up the bed? Who's going to vacuum the floor?
Who's going to wash the clothes?
There's a whole conglomeration of things there. But that faith component and that relationship with God is the binding or the binding agents.
Yeah, because God can give you wisdom on how to deal with one another.
Come on.
That's right.
And I believe that, being married and then being a child that was in part of a dysfunctional marriage, you kind of see where some people make their own choices, where they kind of, you can tell God was trying to show them or teach them something, but they make their own choices and they make a mess.
So
and then I believe some people come into a marriage hurt.
That's right.
Like if you look at that doorway, it's only so wide.
Come on.
So when we had to bring these bags in, sometimes I had to bring them in one at a time.
Yeah.
Some people show up to the marriage with 10 duffel bags.
That's
Absolutely.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think when you try to operate in a small room or a confined space with bags, you end up knocking things over.
Come on.
Someone tries to help, then they fall.
Yeah.
So how can someone empower their spouse who has been through troubled past? Because sometimes you may be married to, say, Mary or Stephen, but you're treating them like Joe and Sally.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely.
And I'll let you go into that a little bit, but I'll say that has to do with your individual walk with God as well, to where you become the person that another person can trust with their stuff.
Right.
You become the person. You perfect the art of listening.
Yeah.
Okay, because sometimes people just need you not to diagnose. Not to dissect, not to do surgery, but to just listen. So if you can be that safe space, that safe place to just hear them out so that they can unload, not necessarily, rant, and vent, but to unload so that you can help them unpack. So as you work on yourself as an individual, you allow yourself, that person rather, that space, to unpack their life, and you walk them through that. If you're at a better place in that area, you help walk them through that. That's part of the marriage journey.
And you know what? I think one of the things we learned as we began to grow together and evolve, we found out that your struggle was not your struggle alone. Number one, when we came together, we became one. And so now whatever your problem is my problem.
That's right.
And I know what the things that I went through.
That takes out the pointing fingers. And
Right.
Yeah.
And when I was going through some of my greatest struggles, and maybe we'll talk about that today, or I'll come back and talk about it. But I felt like I was all alone at one point. I felt like it was so embarrassing. It was too deep to talk about, and I was ashamed. I was ashamed of my past, ashamed of some of the things that were beyond my control, as well as some things that I decided to do. And when she started discovering some of those things, it made me even more shameful and embarrassed about it. And I began to become even more, watch this, secretive. When it was, and I'll give you one of them, for instance, pornography was a big problem for me. And I became so secretive to the point to where I didn't want her to find anything. But amazingly, with God in the picture, she finds out everything, And so, and that brought more hurt and more pain and more embarrassment and more shame. And number one, and you may have heard me say it, and I've said it to when we preach and when we go all over, and I'm talking about Jackie, she showed me God. And we know, number one, God is love. And so in the midst of it, she showed me I wasn't alone. I wasn't by myself. And when we stopped the pointing fingers, well, if you would do this, and if you didn't do that, and you're supposed to be a man of God, and you're supposed to be a woman of God. You kind of go through the back and forth, and you're not really resolving the issues and communicating on a productive level. When you stop that, and when I'll never forget it, maybe you'll tell that part of it, when she began to take on, hey, I've been treating you like this is your problem alone. But no, wait a minute, this is our problem. And we're going to work on it together. And she discovered that through the story of Abigail and Nabal. Nabal was, of course, foolish. But Abigail had enough wisdom to say, when she laid before David, you know what? Let the sin of my husband, of the foolishness of Nabal be upon me, and preserve my whole house, And because of that, that one move she made, she preserved her whole house from destruction. And so that's what we began to come into agreement about, and we began to work on. And that's when I was able to be open and honest and get my freedom and liberty.
And as well, and we love to talk about the proverbial woman, that perfect woman in Proverbs 31. But part of that says that his heart safely trusts in her. So as wives, we have to be a treasure chest. You don't just put your treasure chest out in the living room for everybody to rummage through. He's got to know that I can put my deepest, even darkest thoughts, issues, deeds in that treasure chest, and you're going to safely secure them. You won't exploit him. Okay, you won't beat him up with it. It won't come up as a dart in the future, but that you become that safe place where his heart can trust in you.
That's right.
Wow. And I remember listening to you guys, and I never forget what you said. So feel free to go in wherever, dive in wherever. But you said that a wife should be her husband's chief deliverer. I was like, wow, that stuck with me for that's something I would never forget. Never forget. Now, and I just remember being, just thinking like, wow, like a husband and wife should be able to come to each other.
That's right.
You see movies and VH1 where, the girlfriend is talking to the girlfriend and the husband knows nothing. Or the husband is talking to to his guy friend and the wife knows nothing. And I think that's a powerful statement, because by you being one, that should be your best friend. That should be your counselor. That should be the first person where you unload that information.
Exactly.
Because I'm pretty sure once you started to tell her things you were carrying, it's like putting down bags where you feel like, thanks for helping me carry these.
You know what's amazing? I was just telling someone the other day how there would be times when I'm talking to Jackie. Jackie, she's my life coach. And many people talk about how wonderful of a life coach she is and how she's coached them through some hard times and some challenging times. But I said, well, wait a minute. She had all the practice on me first. And I can recount the time. I know. But, I can recount the times or remember the times when we'll sit out at a restaurant and we'll be talking, and she'll coach me, ask me the right questions, and coach me through the processes of my thoughts, or help me process my thoughts, and tears would be rolling down my face, and I was like, gosh, this is therapy. She's doing therapy on me. And so that's why I say, I know what my wife carries, and how she's been a help to me through that, and because of that, I am who I am today. I'm able to be who I am.
Wow. And that vice versa, of course.
Yeah, pretty sure.
We've learned to not attack.
Yeah.
We've learned to not attack. We had this little thing that we would do, that we would take a white napkin or whatever little towel, just a white something, and when we would feel that level of tension and attack, we would get our white little something and say, wait a minute, I'm not your enemy. We'd wave the little white flag, piece of paper or whatever, and we would have to remind each other, I'm not the enemy. You're not the enemy. So let's cut this. Let's stop this. Let's not attack one another. Let's assess what the real problem is so that we can get to the answer.
Yeah. Wow. And what I realize now, like being married, because I'll be married 10 years next month, is marriages are very rare. Good marriages are very rare. And like I said, it's not perfect, but good marriages are very rare. And you see where people do not respect marriages now. So you got people that are, I would say there's a fine line between being jealous and envious, and they may say, being jealous is something that I think they can one day obtain. I think if they're envious, they feel like they can never have it. So they'll come in, and the enemy will use them, and they'll slowly pull one away.
That's so true.
So what is your advice on keeping that circle tight without letting the opposition come in?
That is so good.
It is good. I think going back to what we said at the beginning is making sure that your marriage, that you're dwelling with one another by faith, not by performance. Another thing is, because you had mentioned the different TV shows that shows or depicts the man talking to his group of men and vice versa, but really creating a strong level of communication. For us, communication is everything.
Well, can you talk about our code?
Okay. You go ahead, Susan.
Well, no.
Go ahead. You're fine.
Well, we have a code. We have a code that we have within our marriage to where we've set boundaries around what people can do and what they can say around us, what types of people we let into our lives, who we hang out with. We only want to be around people who promote marriage. We don't hang around people who put their wives down or put their husbands down. Once those conversations start, it's cut. It's cut.
You're right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now we'll minister to people.
Absolutely.
And try to forbear with them for a while, and long suffer. But when we hear too much, because we believe that faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God, and so when we keep hearing negatives, and it's not like you're taking in, I can't do that. I love Jackie. Jackie loves me, and you're not going to get no bad information from me on Jackie. And so I'm going to make sure in front of anyone that I uphold my wife.
Set those guards.
And it kind of keeps the garden of your mind. It kind of weeds the bad seeds out. Because I've seen people that come to work or whatever, and they complain about their spouse so much to where your thing may be coming home, I get undressed, I throw my drawers in the corner, I take a shower, I come back and I get them up. So now all of a sudden, because homegirl is telling you that, now you're like, you know what? I'm tired of you putting your... And before you know it, they've infiltrated your marriage with that bad seed.
That's right. The Bible says evil communication corrupts good manners. So we have to guard the gate of our ears when it comes to our marriage. And a lot of times when people are complaining, they're dropping seeds because they're looking for something else. So they're opening up doors and they're looking for ways to kind of see what else is out there. So when you want to safeguard and make your marriage a safe place, you immediately go in. You don't tolerate it. Not the first time, not the second. You don't tolerate it. I don't tolerate anyone speaking against my husband. And because we've guarded our marriage so well, we don't deal with it at all now. It's just people know. If you see me, you saw him. If you talk to me, you talk to him. And that fusion has so happened. The Bible says the two become one. But, we walk that out, the journey of a marriage. But that's not, we think it happens on the day we get married. It happens spiritually. But we have to walk that thing out in the everyday. And so, because he is my best friend, I am his best friend, we do everything we can to protect. And that's through communicating who we are and what can and cannot happen.
That's great. That's great. And I think society now tells you that, you have to operate in a certain way and people fall victim to that pressure. But I believe that once you release that pressure from the external. I think you can operate better in your marriage.
Yes, especially when it comes to roles.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, we're talking about the effects of the external effects on marriage. And like I said, I believe that in society, it's just like, they teach you to go to school, go to college, graduate, get a job. Right. Instead of go to school, go to college, graduate, become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I think that with marriage is like, it's so many things that they're setting these standards.
Yeah.
And so many people, instead of focusing on the person that they're married with, they're focusing on all this other stuff to build their marriage. And what's funny is, like you said, we live in like that selfie age.
Yeah.
And to where people are so worried about how other people perceive their marriage, they're not worried about how their spouse, their partner perceives the actual marriage.
That's right.
Because they could think, hey, y'all are doing good, but at home, hey man, we're not even sleeping in the same bed.
Right.
And it's crazy. So what is your take on that? Like, just how you got the perfect standard, then you got the couple that may be a perfect marriage to some, but because they don't feel like they have all these bells and whistles to go along with their marriage, that is affecting that.
Okay, very good. I would say walk your journey. No marriage is like another. There are no two marriages that are alike. And if we settle that, then we kick out comparison.
Yes.
And we kick out competition.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where the phony, the fake comes in, the imagery comes in.
And you lose the authenticity.
Absolutely. You don't have authenticity amongst one another. You can't minister to others because you're trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So once you kick out competition and comparison, now you can live your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And what's real begins to be conveyed to people.
Yeah.
And so what's on you now, it can flow to others because I can make a mistake and we're still a good marriage.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You know I can something can happen detrimental and we can get it back together again and we're still a good marriage. So I think people define mistakes and issues as not having a good relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay. Relationship. Okay, ship. We understand that a ship is something that carries. You know what I'm saying? So there's a flow that goes on with that.
Yeah.
So how you relate deals with how you are able to flow, how you're able to move, how mobile you are, how you're able to evolve and transfer.
Yes.
So when we get it out of our mind that I got to be like somebody else and just build what you have.
Yes.
Put your attention on causing him to become all that God called him to be. He puts his attention.
Yes.
That intentionality is so key when it comes to truly building the marriage that God desires for us to have. He doesn't want you to have my marriage.
No.
We have people that say to us all the time, if only my husband would do what, and if only my wife would do what, and we're like, no, you don't want him to do what Kelso does. That'll kill you. Because your husband wasn't designed for me.
Right.
My husband wasn't designed for you.
And they won't be that individual.
Come on now.
Right.
So we're not going to administer the same antidote and the same healing that you need. But we can, in principle, teach you how to bring things together, how to communicate, how to love, how to bring your finances together, how to never argue about finances, how to bring, that's so big, and that's probably another show.
Yeah.
Because
We got to get that in the show.
Yeah, because that's where the competition comes in. I make this, you make that. We don't know our roles. Some of that's the outside influence. Because now culture is saying there is no role.
Wow.
Anything you can do, I can do better.
Right.
So we feel like, the wife can do just what the husband does, and, vice versa. But there are roles according to the Word of God, and that's how we tend to submit ourselves.
Yeah, and I know married couples that have cut income from coming into the house because this one is going to make more than that one.
Exactly.
Wow. That's pride.
I mean, to me, that is crazy.
Absolutely.
That if this one can be elevated, if you are one,
come on,
that cash is flowing in the same household.
Come on.
But because you feel like you have that much pride, so that's not going to happen.
That's right.
But then you're praying to God for increasing finance.
When we first got married, we I think I lost my job at the post office. Yeah. They did layoffs, and so I lost my job, and then I began to work for a temp agency for a while, and had a good paying job through the temp agency. But when we got married, I didn't have a solid place of employment, and for a while she was making all of the money, and or making, I think even for a while you make more money than I was, but never one time did I feel less than a man. I knew who I was. I knew the type of person my parents had raised me to be. And but when we brought money into the house, it was our money.
Always.
We said this is what, matter of fact, this was our statement. This is what we made this week.
Yes.
This is what we made this month.
That's right.
It wasn't this is what she made or what
Right.
she brought to the table. This is what I brought to the table. No, we looked at our bank account and we were able to say this is what we together made this week.
That's
And
right.
I think that is such an important piece. We never argued about money, finances. What's this is mine, that's yours. No, this is ours, you know. Yeah. And I think that is so important. I want to go back just if you don't mind just for a moment.
Go ahead.
Because we were dealing with the communication piece.
Yeah.
And communication is a very important part of how well we communicate or how well we function in the finances.
That's right.
But it also starts with how we think. If our thinking is low, then our communication is going to be low.
That's right.
So the first thing that has to happen to every individual in a marriage is that thinking has to be dealt with. You have to be transformed in your mind. We really can't function productively together and have that blossoming marriage, an exciting marriage full of benefits and joy if we don't have or approach the marriage from a transformed mind. That means transform comes from the Greek word metamorpho, which means there's a metamorphosis that has to take place. I have to get rid of the old. Matter of fact, it actually uses the concept of refurbish. Refurbish meaning I have to get rid of everything that's old, the old torn up parts of my mentality. I think you were talking about that at the beginning when we were discussing this session or this segment that so many times people bring the baggage into their relationship. Well, that's really a tainted and destroyed and messed over traumatic mind, a mind that has went through a lot of trauma and it can't function properly. And until we go through the transformation period to where we're renewed by the spirit of our mind through the word of God, then we cannot really now positively and productively communicate, because everything you say out of your mouth, it came from your mind. All right. So that's why if you're going to really function, and I know I'm covering a lot in this, but I'm just dealing with it from a financial point of view. If this doesn't shift, everything you say is going to affect your finances. It's going to affect how you relate in roles. It's going to affect how you represent each other in your authoritative roles, because we're supposed to submit one to another, not her submitting to me and or she just ruling over me, but no, we work together and we submit one to another. But if our mind concerning how we view one another, how we view others, how we view God, how we view ourselves, if that does not shift and be transformed, it's going to be very hard for us to be able to work together in our finances. So I just wanted to,
you going in.
It's kind of, didn't you go in?
Sorry, the mind though, it's so important.
I was just thinking. Go ahead.
You go ahead. That was good.
I know he's got everything popping now with all of that, but I was just thinking as you were talking, high frequency, low frequency relationships, to where you have one person that's on this plane and then you have this person that's kind of lagging behind, and that's where you get the dysfunction. Because you've got two different minds. And the Bible says, how can two walk together except they agree? So you have to, not that you can't learn to function, but that low functioning person has got to come up to where that high functioning person is. Otherwise, the relationship can't work.
And I think with some of that starts, just to use like a metaphor, I remember when I started working a job, I went in as an employee. I worked hard, and then I got elevated to management. So I can't think at this position like I used to at this position.
That's right.
So could you explain the importance of people knowing that once you go from dating to engagement to marriage, the mindset has to grow with that. You can't be married and think like you did when you were dating.
Come on, and you need to take yourself through that. I know you're going to hit that real good.
Oh God,
you can't. You've got to take yourself through that process of shifts and changes prior to the marriage, or you're going to find yourself in a whole lot of turmoil. And that comes down to relationships with other people, your single friends, kind of having a little powwow with them and letting them know, I'm getting ready to marry this young lady. And so things are going to be changing with how we can hang out and, how we can maneuver, things of that nature.
Inviting more married people into your circle.
Begin to, begin to commune more with married people so that obtain a marriage mindset. Okay, there's a marriage mindset. Okay, so you can't come into a marriage thinking you're gonna hang out every night.
Yeah.
You can't come into a marriage thinking, okay, she's going to take care of the kids all by herself.
Right,
so there's a mindset that has to be migrated toward prior. And you got to put the work in. You know, like I said, that's what premarital counsel is for. That's what talking to other good marriages do for us. So putting the work in, being intentional about making the shift. First of all, you got to make the decision. Are you really ready to eternally bind yourself to another soul? You got to settle that first.
Wow.
That there is nothing else that your affections can be poured into but that person. Okay? Because we see it all the time where you're together for a while, 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 20. And then now your affections are going somewhere else. And we have to be the type of person that makes that individual want to continue. Come on now. To pour their affections into your life. So that's one aspect of how to do that. Migrating from singleness.
It's so...
or dating.
From dating as well, but it's so even in what you said, and I think that was perfect because of course those are the things I would say. But it's so important to recognize that even when Jesus was dealing with marriage, he was dealing with it from the perspective. Even it's mentioned in Genesis as well. But he was talking about how man is supposed to leave his mother and his father and cleave to his wife. That in itself. Come on, family, mother, father, probably the closest blood relative to a son or to a daughter. But God saw the importance of leaving that. Same way he told Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 when he was saying, listen, I'm about to do something great in you, but I can't do what I really want to do in you until you leave. We can't really function at optimal level and in high levels, high frequency in our marriage until we learn this thing called leave and cleave. We have to be willing to let go of what was. Listen, parents were able to bring you to a certain point, but then after you get married, they have done their job. It is now time, and I know it's so much I want to say on that subject, but it's the same way in friendships, relationships, our peer relationship. They help develop us socially. They help develop our worldview, how we think about life, how we view our situations, our circumstances, how we respond, how we react, our charisma, our swag. We get that from the relationships we had before we got married, whatever it is, But my point in saying that is that they could only bring you up to a certain point. They're somewhat like what we call the scaffold. The scaffold is designed to, when the building is being built, the people have to be on the scaffold, but you don't keep the scaffold up after the building has been built. Now the building is ready for functioning. You've been prepared for this. You've been prepared for marriage. A lot of people don't realize they are already ready. But because they will not allow themselves, calm down, chill out and stop this thing of being afraid of commitment, to one person.
Commitment is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And God anoints commitment.
It doesn't get boring because you're committed,
You get peace of mind.
You got peace of mind, exactly. So those are the things that I think we need to look into. If Jesus and if God had instituted, there has to be a leaving.
That's right.
And there has to be a cleaving. We can now see that those people, it's not that we excommunicate ourselves from them, but they had their place. Now their role, that's it. Their role changes in our lives, and we have to redefine that role. We have to now say, Mom, Dad, I love you. But now you take on a different role. I'm not just the little child that ate up all your food in the house, But now I'm the son that you raised. I'm the man that you raised me to be, and now it's time for me to go ahead and make my own life. And so those are things that I think we need to really understand if we're going to begin to move forward in marriage.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know in marriage, like at times, you really realize the other person when things happen. And I remember my wife losing her mom. And that really brought us, closer. But it was times where I felt like I wasn't doing anything because there's nothing you can do or say. But I think the fact that I was there, she told me.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Is everything.
And you really, I think at that point you realize what marriage is for. Because at the end of the day, when everybody else is going, you're going to be there.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I'm a firm believer in, treating people the way that you should, even in a marriage, like showing them that equal amount of respect, because no matter how many people come and go, this person's going to be there.
That's right. That's right.
They're going to be there for you to wake up in the middle of the night, be there for you in the morning. And I think so many people get it, unbalanced when it comes to like influential people in their life. Like, like you said, you have a role reversal when you get married.
That's right.
That's so good. I love that, but you have to be able to define it.
Yeah.
You got to see it for what it is. And I like what you said when you were dealing with your wife and when her mom passed, because trauma can either bring you close or it can separate you.
Yeah.
So you have to really be careful in those finer and more sensitive times of your life, because it's really an opportunity for our marriage to really, really come together, for you to step up. And to show who you really can be for that individual. It's a time to really be selfless. There are times in marriage when it is 100% not about you. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
You don't get to have your cry right now. You don't get to talk about your problems right now. You don't get to say, what irked your nerve right now.
And how stressed out you are.
Right now, I got to give you that.
Yeah.
So that was a really good point that you brought up. Because we have to learn how and know how to navigate those moments in marriage.
Got you. Now, how did you all get to that point where, you may come home and be ready to vent, but you realize, let me take this back seat because you look like you needed more. How does a person get to that point?
It's really when you get to a place of denying yourself. Jesus talks about taking up your cross, taking up your own cross and following him. Ephesians chapter 5 also deals with, and this is what I always, when it comes from the male perspective and position, the Bible tells us, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Watch this, and gave his life for the church. Same way with in the marital relationship. The husband has to be willing to die. I remember when we first, outside bar here just for a moment, I remember when we first got married. Every time she would say something, I would say, "You're out of order. I'm the man. You're out of order. You're out of order." And so that would make her cringe, But and then we discovered, of course, the proverbial woman opens her mouth with kindness. With the law of kindness, but she has to say something. So we both had some work to do on both parts. I had to learn that it was okay to listen, and I had also learned it was okay for her to talk, and then she had to learn, if I'm going to talk, say it in kindness or be kind about it. But I think what happens in a lot of relationships, mostly when you're learning how to communicate and you're learning how to develop that listening skill. It's important to be selfless, to get rid of selfishness and to die. Are you really willing to die for this individual?
That's so awesome.
And dying goes beyond, I'll take a bullet for. It's one thing for me to exemplify, because of course Jackie knows I'll fight for Jackie, I'll take up for Jackie. But the real strength is not really me taking a bullet for Jackie.
Come on, physical,
right, because we always want to resort to something physical. But there's a greater strength. Just like I teach people all the time, you can be strong with muscles, but can you control your anger? Do you know how to? The strongest man is the man that knows how to control his emotions, know how to control what he thinks, his tongue. So even though there are times I may want to say something, I may want to retaliate, if I really love her, I'm willing to die, and I'm willing to control those things.
He is so good at that.
Bless you.
I mean, that is just a huge benefit.
He went in early. He went up.
That is like a huge benefit in my life. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it saves marriage. It's something that's simple, because either do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Come on now.
And it's like you could go in and argue that night, but is it worth it?
Right.
Is it worth going to bed upset? And this one little argument, like I said, things start with seeds and it just sprouts. You know how some people are. 4 years from now, you on a cruise and something go bad and they bring it up.
Come on.
And now that you talked about bullets, I just want you all to go into the importance of covering your marriage, not giving another person a loaded gun. And what I mean is, I think in marriages and relationships and as people, we all have guns that empty. And then it's like, hey, pastor, this is what I like to do in my spare time, and I'm loading it up. Or this is what me and my wife do. I load it up. Or this is shit we know what she does to me. And then I give you this gun, so that at any given moment,
they got you.
You can use it against me. Now, how important is it to use discernment of know who to confide in, who to talk to, and who not to?
Yeah, wow, that is so good.
Yeah,
praise the Lord.
That is good.
Covering your marriage is of utmost importance. And one thing that we always say is everyone is not anointed to hold your information.
Yes.
Everyone is not anointed to hold your information.
Wow.
So you want to know that you're in a covenant relationship with individuals that you share your heart's situations with. Yeah. People who are skilled, people who are educated, mature. People who may even are bound by confidentiality as far as pouring your marital information into people such as counselors, coaches, your pastors. I wouldn't even say your BFF per se, because sometimes because they are your best friend, they can be biased, and you don't want to change their view of your spouse because you're telling too much. So you don't want to set yourself up for a future attack, like you said, loading that gun, because you don't know how long that relationship will last. You don't know what the enemy may try to do.
And even with family, because then you at the cookout wondering.
Come on.
Because you at the table by yourself.
Indeed.
And it sets in, you must have been telling,
Come on. But it goes back to the leave and cleave principle that he mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I had to hold a lot.
Yeah.
I had to hold a lot.
And she did.
And it grew my relationship with God. It grew my prayer life because I refused to go run and tell her mom. I refused to go tell sister. There were times I had to get in my car and just drive to an isolated place.
Yeah.
And it was just tears for maybe an hour. Yep. God help me. Sometimes I couldn't even talk. Okay? God help me. Now, I wish I would have had, some help at that point.
Absolutely.
And there are people who probably could have been outlets. But because my mindset was, I got to cover him. I got to cover him. I'm not going to put him out there like that. I know this is going to pass. As upset as I may be, hurt as I may be, I know this is going to pass. Why? Because I'm not leaving him. So if I'm not leaving him,
there's no need.
Why would I mess up his name? Why would I mess up his reputation? Why would I have undue warfare now brought into my marriage? Because now I got Sally and Jane fighting with me against my spouse. So let it grow your relationship. Let it grow your intimacy with God. Let it grow your prayer life. There are some things maybe you cannot hold. You have to go to someone, but make sure they're anointed and they're confidential individuals that when you walk out of that room, it's left with them.
Right.
So I think for men it's different. Like when I was raised single parent mom, I had my aunts around, my uncles work. So being raised around a lot of women, I think I learned how to talk. I think for men it's hard to get us to talk, but to know, okay, I told you this, and now you dropped the ball. Now I can never tell you. It'd be even 10 times harder to get that person to communicate.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things my mom told me right before I got married, and I always talk about it, tell the congregation about it, and that is, she would say to me, son, it doesn't. Number one, she said to me, son, it doesn't matter how angry she makes you.
Yeah.
Don't you ever talk about your wife to another woman. Never. And I've never done that. Anything that Jackie has done that has hurt me, I've talked about it. I just come to her and say, okay, this is what you did. Now, I wasn't, well, I guess I still am in some ways. I'm an internalizer. So I internalize a lot.
I gotta go fishing to get something.
I know, and I had to learn how to really be able to communicate openly with her and tell her, okay, this is step by step. This is what bothered me. This is what you did. I'm not beating you up about it. We had to learn that too. That's a whole nother segment. But we had to learn how to really say what bothered us about the other individual. And when she afforded me those opportunities, I was able to really get a freedom from just being so much of an I'm still an internalizer now, but I'm not as bad as I used to be. I just go step by step and I tell her this is what I'm dealing with. But that's what my mother taught me. Yeah. She said, don't you ever.
Don't take it out.
Yeah, don't you take it out. And never once, out of 21 years of marriage, we never had to call on our parents and say, I'm tired of her, I'm sick of her. And she's never done that to me as much as she could have. She never did that to me. And we never went to our friends and said, you know what, I need you to help me with this, because Jackie did this and she said that and I'm frustrated and I'm angry with her. We never had to do that, in order to get some level of counseling. So
I love what you're saying, because as you were talking, the thought came to me.
Yeah.
It's unfair to your friends and family to do that.
Yeah.
Especially when you know what your spouse is anointed to do in your family and for your friends. It's unfair to them to now change their vision of who that person is, because tomorrow you're going to still be with them. They're still anointed. They're still called by God. And the word and the knowledge and the wisdom that they are called to release, you've now blocked it.
It's like you're bruising their testimony.
Exactly. Exactly. So it works against both parties.
Or even their effectiveness just to minister.
Right.
Because just because a person hits some bumps in the road while they're on their journey does not disqualify them.
Absolutely.
And I think in just the Christian world, in the world of believers, we've put this perfecting measurement upon people, and we made people think that you have to be perfect in order to be effective. No, you don't have to be perfect to be effective. You have to be authentic.
Right.
It is being authentic that brings positive or productive effectiveness. And a lot of people, because you got people who are trying to be like, I'm not going to say names, but try to be like the next big person or big name in Hollywood, whatever. But you don't realize every time you compare, I think we dealt with comparison earlier, every time you compare yourself with someone else, you are devaluing your genuineness, your authenticity, and every time you devalue it, you push it to the side.
That's
Therefore, if you push aside your authenticity, you're overlooking your gifts, and if you're not using your gifts, then you don't have effectiveness. You're not effective in ministry or whatever your assignment is. So those things are so important when you're dealing in your marriage. You stop comparing. Stop thinking that you need to be like someone else and trying to do it like everyone else. Be yourself. Be who God has called you to be. And not only that, stop trying to look for this thing called perfection. Right. But look for authenticity. Right. If we can train people in our churches, our single people, how to stop looking for marriage or stop looking for relationship and stop looking for this picture perfect man, picture perfect wife, Coca-Cola bottle, abs, whatever, and start looking for authenticity. We'll have less people getting involved in relationships and being hurt and being disappointed because they found out that the person was not who they said they were.
Right. And if I can just kind of wrap that up a little bit, even more so, it's pride when you take negative information outside of your marriage, because you're trying to cast a better image of yourself than your spouse.
That's another way to look at it.
It's a pride spirit that hey, I'm going to tell you this and they're doing this, but are you talking about what you did that may have caused what happened or what they did or how they responded? So pride says, let me go tell somebody so that I can buddy up and so that I can feel right. Okay? It's not about who's right. It's about what's right. And that's one thing in our relationship as well we've come to. We don't have rights.
Right.
We don't deal with, well, I have a right to say this and I have a right to do that, because who I am and what I do. What's right.
Right. And even that mindset, just to piggyback on what you just said, that mindset is a couple who's in competition.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to present me as the better person, but I don't want to present that person as the better person. I want you to know I'm innocent in everything. And that's competition, but we're not called, in a marriage, you're not called to competition. You're called to complimenting. We complement one another. Me looking good should always make her look good, and vice versa. Let's eliminate the competition. I'm not competing against her for the best, I guess, I don't know, teacher of the year or who voted for me. I'm the better listener than she is, or I'm the better communicator than she is. No, we both are growing. We both are learning, and I'm going to put her in a good light just like she puts me in a good light.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
No competition.
That's great ways to look at it. Because when you're building yourself up, you're diminishing the other person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's two ways to get the tallest building in the city. Either tear everyone else's down, or you can build yours. You know, and I just think that's
right.
It's kind of crazy because when you focus on yourself, you're forgetting about that other person.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And then, you know, as you get taller, you cast a shadow.
That's right.
You know?
Sure.
And I think if you focus on like that complimenting, if you compliment each other, and you know, if you're at competition with that, you'll always win. Versus complimenting yourself.
That's it.
Wow, this has been a power pack segment.
Absolutely.
Are you all willing to come back and do a part 2?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like I want to go in more.
Sure.
But yeah, we definitely gotta get a part 2 so that way we can kind of get that rolling. But hey, it was great to have you all.
Thank you.
All. What do you want to say to the audience that is on the brink of giving up, that thought about divorce when they woke up this morning, or when they're watching this video? Like, what do you want to say to them?
Well, you know, I just want to say this first, is that number one, God is the God of possibilities. Yes. He's not the God of impossibility, but He's the God of possibility. Yes. Bible says with all things, with God, all things are possible. Right. And I taught this a long time ago with God not being the God of impossibilities, because He never looks at a situation as if it's impossible. Right. But every time He sees a situation, He says it's possible. And so what I want to say to you is that God is looking at your situation, and I'm telling you, even with what I've gone through, we've gone through together and experienced, it looked like it was impossible, but that was not God's end for my life for our life and even for our marriage. But it was possible to change. So I want to relay that to you today, is that it's possible to have a good marriage, to have a marriage that you can reap the benefits from, a super marriage. It's good for you, or rather it's possible for you to really experience the joy that marriage affords. And you can be in love. You can experience true, authentic love in your marriage. And that's what I want to say. It is possible. It was possible for us. It's possible for you.
Right. And if I can throw a little something in there, anybody can change. Remember, anyone can change. Give them the opportunity to do so.
That's part 2.
Amen.
Wow. Yeah, so we're definitely coming back with part 2. Like I said, if you notice how they operate, they work as a team. And like I said, and I hope that everything they said, I pray that you all take it in. Amen. Let it sink in. Let those positive seeds dive into the garden of your mind. And hopefully they'll grow, and we can save some marriages, and you can help other people. You can get this to whoever needs that, all right? And like I always say, one love, be blessed.